Tuttle here. It's storm season in Oklahoma, and with that comes torrential rain, high winds, and hail. To protect your home and your family from these threats, the one roofing company you should trust is Ferguson Roof Systems. They've been providing the best in roofing services for nearly half a century. Ferguson is Oklahoma's full-service roofing company, certified with an A+ Better Business Bureau rating and a 5-star rating on Google. And with Ferguson now offering Class 4 impact-resistant shingles, now is the time to trust them with your home's roof. Get started today at FergusonRoofSystems.com.
Hey there, Meteorologist Tuttle back with you again. It's about a few minutes before noon. It is time for your lunchtime live weather update here on your Tuesday of the week. We do have some severe weather in the forecast. We're going to talk about that here for today and see if anything has changed and what you need to be aware of. In case you missed out the last couple of broadcasts on Sunday night and Monday night, we're doing a little recap here for you now. Jared, I see you in the house with some stars. By the way, there was a thing that popped up on my phone that says, I am this close to 1 million stars. So apparently that's a big achievement on Facebook world. So thank you, everybody, for the stars. So we're almost there. I think we're, I don't know, lacking us a couple hundred or something. It's getting there. So anyways, I always appreciate you guys' support. On YouTube, thanks for checking in. And also on Rumble this afternoon, and also on Twitter. So thanks for joining me here at AT's Weather. Also on Facebook, click the link if you're having trouble getting notified when we do go live on time. Say, for example, you're watching the replay right now because your phone didn't tell you. Well, if you click on that link, I'll let you know through your direct message. That way you don't miss a broadcast, and that could become important when it comes to talking about tornadoes. Casey, thank you for the stars this afternoon. Appreciate you. All right, let's take a look at the conditions out there. Clouds, but also some sunshine, so it's not a bad afternoon. Temperatures are warming up now into the upper 70s, so getting a little warmer. Hey, Lindsay, thank you very much. Ron, you guys are awesome. So now on my wind sensor, it's low down the ground, so it's not going to pick up the true wind speeds that are blowing out there across the country. Well, could be, but yeah, across Oklahoma. Let's take a look at those. Also, here's a look at temperatures out there. I've got in the upper 70s to low 80s now across the state. So it's going to be a very warm day today. Remember yesterday we saw a few 90s out there. If we look at the winds, though, like I mentioned earlier, my wind's a little light there, but if you do look at elsewhere, we're looking at gusts to 26 miles per hour here in Oklahoma County, 30 out across Canadian County. It's already had gusts up to around 50 in the Panhandle, so obviously a very windy afternoon up there, which leads to, yes, you bet, a high fire danger. All right, so let's talk about the severe weather risk here for today. So this is the latest from the Storm Prediction Center, which highlights a big area, once again, very similar to what we saw on Friday. Brenda, thank you very much for the stars. Jolene, is very gross and muggy outside. Yeah, it's funny. We can go from yesterday was great as far as humidity goes, right? It felt good, even though it was warm. It didn't feel like overly oppressive, but you add in dew points in the 60s, that all changes, and it feels really gross out there. Almost feels like Houston weather, if you ever get to experience that. So there you go. All right, so that's the big picture of the country. That kind of zooms in here across our region. Four-panel deal here. This is the threat, which brings it right up to the I-35 corridor. Like I mentioned yesterday and the day before, that eventually the Storm Prediction Center, in my opinion, would bring this threat back into the Oklahoma City metro area. So we'll talk about that as they have. Let's see. This is the tornado aspect, though, out here to the east of us. It does include us for the hail and for the wind. Now, I think the tornado part could be an error as well. It should also just be included with the rest of them, in my opinion, but we'll see. Let's take a look at what the algorithms think. In other words, what does AI have to say about all this? The machine learning says that the threat for tornadoes backs up just west of I-35. So if I were to put the little, let's see, let me put the little map right here, where I got the tip of the arrow. That is Oklahoma City, so that puts us in the 10 to 15% probability range. So I will give you this. It is low, but it's certainly not zero. Much higher probabilities once you get into the shaded area, and that includes the Tulsa area up there, as well as Arkansas, Missouri, and that southeast part of Iowa. This part over here is all hail, so it has us in the hail shaded area. And as far as the wind goes, it has us also in the damaging wind area as well. So the algorithms have come along with my train of thought. So the computers think like AT does. It's weird to say my name in third person, though. Let's just not ever do that again, Aaron. I just did it again. As I talk to myself. Okay, let's talk about the fire danger. Out here across western Oklahoma, there's the extreme in the purple, so do your best not to burn anything. to start a fire, all that kind of stuff. The severe weather threat from the Weather Service, they haven't quite caught up to the Storm Prediction Center. It should be back out here to the west, so they'll update this map here accordingly later on this afternoon. Let's see, tornado potential, they'll have to bring that up. At least I should think they bring it a little bit more to the west to include, again, in my opinion, Oklahoma City metro area. Timing, they have pretty much anywhere from 4 o'clock onward. Favorable timing in the evening hours as well. If you look at Tulsa, also under the gun here for severe weather, they will also update their graphics to bring it back to the west. But they do include a moderate risk out here across parts of Oklahoma and into Arkansas. And their timing is around midnight north and west of Tulsa, but then 1 to 3 a.m. here and 2 to 4 a.m. Now, this is for basically the final push of the storms with the cold front. I still think we'll see a few supercells before then, and I'll show you that in the data here as well. So again, thanks you guys for chiming in. Tabitha, I see with some stars, and Rami, thank you very much here on our Lunchtime Live. So here's a look at the jet stream in the upper levels of the atmosphere. This is the wind field, and we have a very strong jet. We actually have We have a convergent jet. We've got one here, and we've got the main one here. So it's like a subtropical and a polar jet stream combining over Oklahoma. And that usually spells trouble with a lot of lift around our area. I mean, massive amounts. And of course, anywhere we have the juxtaposed from the jet, you do have this nice enhanced area here, which again is where that severe weather threat lies. And you usually have a little bit of a subtle lift on the bottom end of that in this area. So that's why it's kind of a large region affected for today. If we look at 700 millibars with the lift in the atmosphere along the dry line, it does favor this zone right here, which is where the dry line will be, of a lot of lift by 6 and 7 o'clock this evening. So that could be enough, sufficient to bust the cap and get some thunderstorms developed right here around the greater Oklahoma City metro area. Now, the humidity out there, we talked about it being a little bit more humid, right? So we have dew point values in the 60s when you got up here this morning, which is far different from yesterday. Now, as we go into the afternoon, you see how the dividing line kind of stops? This is splitting the metro in halves. Oklahoma County is on the right side of this dashed line, Canadian County on the left. So you guys are all into the dry air here. Dew point values into the teens, whereas east, dew point values in the upper 60s to around 70. Big difference in the air mass, and that's what a dry line is. It just separates the moist air from the dry air. Regardless, though, as we go into the rest of the afternoon, look how that moisture surge retreats and backs up well west of I-35. So that's where that boundary is going to lie. So again, we're under the gun here for any storms to fire in this area where you do have the moisture in place. Now, I will tell you this, it's a low probability, but it's not a zero probability from all the data that I've seen. I do expect a couple of thunderstorms to develop. If I'm wrong, I got to eat it, but if I'm right, these will be nasty storms capable of producing tornadoes. All right, so here's a look at this afternoon. You can see the cap diminishing with time, especially in the evening hours. That's where you see all these little clear areas. This is all where the cap has weakened substantially to allow some thunderstorms to develop. Now in the evening, it typically rebuilds, and that's what will happen around this area. But closer to the convergence line of the dry line, this little zone here, we do have a weakness in the capping layer, and that again should allow for some thunderstorms to develop as that whole front starts to move to the east, and that creates a lot of lift in this zone, which means thunderstorms should have no problem developing according to the data. If you look at the significant tornado parameter, it already sets up here pretty high around the 6 and 7 o'clock hour, right through the heart of central Oklahoma, up north toward Ponca City and back down toward Lawton. So again, any tornadoes or any storms that were happening to develop in this region, there's plenty of ingredients in the atmosphere to produce a significant tornado. If we do look at the shear overlay along with the CAPE values, it's quite high. We've got joules of energy up around 3,000 to 4,000 CAPEs along that boundary. That's explosive energy for thunderstorms to tap into should they develop. And we have some really decent shear as well here across Oklahoma County. For example, I can just, I'll pick a plot here. This is just a random point here that I picked for Canadian County. In that particular case, the possible hazard type is a PDS tornado with the EF4, potential EF5 magnitude. Again, CAPE values off the charts, no cap in place. Plenty of hail size estimates up over, golf balls. We're probably talking some large hail, and plenty of shear for rotating storms. So all in all, again, if a storm were to develop in this case, it should not have a problem going tornadic. The only thing that's going to hold us is there still will be a cap in some places, so it won't be a complete breakage of that. So it'll be an isolated event should they develop. Now, the models are having a tough time with that. They don't really foresee storms developing. So, for example, if I go to 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock, you see this right here? So this is the fine line. This is where the models are putting reflectivity. So they know it's a very good convergence line. They know it's a good moisture line. So they know something's up. They just don't know what to do with it. And usually when you're trying to erode a cap, they have a tough time producing precipitation. By 10 o'clock, they finally do along the boundary up across northern Oklahoma, and that comes through the midnight hour through northern Oklahoma through Ponca City. So again, some of these storms are pretty nasty. So it'll be a late night. Those will move through Tulsa 2 and 3 o'clock. Now again, the model doesn't represent what potentially is on the table. But you're going to have to watch out for evening and overnight tornadoes in eastern Oklahoma through the early morning hours, and yes, that extends on in toward Arkansas. So through your overnight hours as well. Let's take a look at another model run. We'll see what this one does. This one does favor a hint of some supercells developing by late afternoon here in south central Oklahoma, then moving through eastern Oklahoma during the late afternoon hours and early evening. And now this little track here, it again is a helicity track, which does indicate rotation within that storm. That can either mean, given the environmental parameters, large hail damaging winds, or a tornado. As we head into the evening, you see how a couple of these do fire up here for Arkansas, especially northwestern corner and the southwestern corner. Again, the placement on where these exact positions are, the models will never be able to get that exact. It just kind of gives you the idea, the general proximity. Here's another supercell that goes up in the evening hours here across the same area of eastern Oklahoma. Pretty much the same track as the last one, just in this particular model output. It tries to fire this front off up here in Kansas, doesn't do so good here across the body of Oklahoma. And then later it fires it up as we head toward daybreak hours from Texas all the way to Arkansas and Missouri. So early morning thunderstorms in here for you guys, like maybe up toward the Little Rock area. I didn't look at the data too intently, but it looks like you're still going to have a threat for tornadoes in the morning hours for Arkansas. So any of those thunderstorms that do roll through your area will have that potential. I've been looking at the tech model because it's been the only one that I thought had a clue in the early data as to what was going to happen today. And it's pretty consistent with this idea of some thunderstorms down here across the Red River, forming into North Texas this afternoon, then crossing into southeast Oklahoma like those other models did, and then those gradually moving off to the east. It also has a tough time, though, forming. One run, it actually formed a storm here in Oklahoma County. These other runs, it did not. So it's also struggling with the cap strength as to whether or not it'll break. Let's see. So now let's go to anything else I want to show you. Obviously windy today. This is the wind field this afternoon. So 3 o'clock. You can see a south wind in this area, a southwest wind all across southwestern and western and northwestern Oklahoma. And this is like we mentioned, if I put a little map here for you, this is kind of like the dividing line of where you get your dry line action, where you have these convergence along the boundary. And that is what helps to get thunderstorms to form. But it also, like we mentioned, separates the dry air from the moist air. So when you look at relative humidity out here in western Oklahoma, 7%, 6%, I mean, that is bone dry. And this is why the fire danger is so high out here. You factor in those wind gusts up around 50 and humidity values less than 10%, that is bad news bears. You don't want that. Temperatures will be hot as well today, considering the time of the year that we're in. So we're looking at mid to upper 80s, maybe even some 90s sneaking in down here in southwest Oklahoma. So that's kind of what's been shown for the last couple of days. Let's see. Stephanie, by the way, thank you for the stars. Isaac, thank you. Happy spring right back at you. Tabitha, thank you very much. Rami, I appreciate you. Brenda also. Let's see. And then Casey asked, I-35 North Central. Yeah, meaningful rain. You'll get some meaningful rain with those big thunderstorms as we approach the 11 o'clock hour, the way things are looking right now. Luxana, thank you very much. And Kristen. And then Wes just got here. Can you start over? Kara, you're late. Don't be late to the party. All right, let's look at temperatures here for the next couple of days into the weekend. Man, if you've got spring fever, you're looking good when it comes to Saturday and Sunday. Look at these numbers up here into the 70s. Overnight low is finally getting out of the 30s again, and we stay pretty decent after that. This is where the Bermuda grass starts to wake up April 12th through the 15th once we get here into the 60s. So that's when your Bermuda grass would really start to grow. Of course, it would do a lot better if we had some decent rain around here, which we don't. So we're kind of hurting. So it's kind of catch-22. But otherwise, looking pretty warm here for Tuesday and Wednesday into next week. And I think that was the bulk of what I want to talk about. Ashley, thank you for the stars also, and Carrie as well. So the bottom line is, along the I-35 corridor, give or take, there's potential for a couple of these supercells to develop late this afternoon, probably after 5 o'clock. If they don't form, it's kind of a secondary window as that front dry line kind of combo kind of moves into the east. That may help to trigger them as well. So there's a couple opportunities there. They're not the highest, but they're not zero either. They're just kind of on the low end. So for confidence factor, I think we'll see a couple of storms develop. We'll see what happens. If they do, there will be large hail damaging winds and a tornado potential. That does include the greater metro area of Oklahoma City, central, southern, northern Oklahoma, up toward Ponca City, for example, and south. Maybe as far west as Lawton, but otherwise I-35. And then east of that is more favorable for any storms to develop supercells in nature, producing that kind of an outcome. So southeast Oklahoma, Tulsa, western Arkansas, into Missouri. So that's our localized threat. Those other storms across other parts of the country, that's what we have to work with here for today. Now, what happens is when you see this setup, if we didn't have all the fancy models which predicts storms and placement of storms like we used to not have several years ago when I was forecasting, you just basically had to go off the atmospheric parameters at the time. In other words, where's the position of the jet? Where's the position of the upper level disturbance? Where's the position of like the different jets with different wind speeds? So from upper levels from 300 millibars to 500 to 850. You look at all those things. And you look for a surface trigger. You look for a dry line or a cold front. All right, so these are all your basics, fundamental in meteorology and weather forecasting. All right, so once all those in place, you go, okay, we have a threat of storms, right? Now the question is, and this has always been the tough part, is will the cap break or not? And usually when you get into the summertime, it's very hard to break a cap unless you get really hot in the day. In the springtime, especially early in the spring, usually the caps are a little bit weaker. The cap is a lid to prevent storms from happening. It's an inversion layer, temperature inversion. And usually, they can be warmer or cooler in various spots. So it's very difficult to predict the strength of that. So that's always been the limiting factor when you're looking at forecasts for that. We know that when we take a morning sounding, you have to have a convective temperature being reached. So let's see, for example, let's go do that here. I'll plot this one up. Now this is, of course, assuming nothing changes for your area. So if we look here at the forecast sounding for Oklahoma City from this morning, so this is the cap, this little nudge in the sounding layer. But if you look down here on the chart, it says convective temperature 88 degrees. All right, so our convective temperature, in other words, the temperature at which we're supposed to break the cap, we have to hit 88 degrees here in Oklahoma City. Now, if you recall, the forecast from the models had us hitting 85. Now, that's not warm enough, right? Now, there's some spots up here, though. See, there's 88, there's 89, there's 86. So there may be some weaknesses here that get close to that value. And then you factor in not only just the heat, the thermodynamic part, but then you have like kinetic part of energy where you have convergence of winds along a boundary that has to force that air to go up or down. It can't go down on the ground, so it's got to go up. So you factor that in, that can also help to break the cap. So we're right there at that level. Right now the models are saying, hey, it'll hold. But these other factors say, yeah, it's a pretty brave statement there, Mr. Model. But on the chart here, significant hail is at the greater than 2-inch category. In other words, we're at the upper end of the boundaries to some very large hail. Analogs up here on grapefruits, for example, that says 4-inch diameter hailstones. So and this is here in central Oklahoma. Let's see, what else is significant on here? We'll just leave it at that. Shear's already pretty good. So that's kind of how you can look at the status of the atmosphere when you start your day, and you take this balloon sounding data, and then you look at the model forecast data and you try to get your forecast out. So if I were just to base my forecast only on an output which shows a thunderstorm has developed or not, then what's that about? I wouldn't even need to agree. I'll just go and just say, okay, it says it's going to rain. And if it was right all the time, hey, great, but it's not going to be. So this is the case where you kind of look at this stuff and you try to figure out, all right, are we going to break it or not? What's your confidence level? And you're like, my confidence level is kind of moderate. It's not high and it's not low, but it's in the middle of the capital breaks. And then you got to say something, right? For a forecast, you're like, well, so what is it? Yes or no? And you can hem and haw, and you can stay on the fence and go, well, if the cap holds, it's fine. Everything's quiet. If it doesn't, Katie bar the doors. And that's kind of a forecast, but it's tough. So what then I'm kind of forced to do is, because you want an answer of yes or no, right? And you want to throw probabilities out the window. So then I can say, yes, I think the cap will break. It'll only be maybe for a couple of storms. I can't tell you exact position, but it'll be here in central Oklahoma more than likely. And then if you're in the path of that, watch out. So I can give you that forecast. So in those type of situations, it's really the most I can do you for on the strong wording. There's others where it's not even a question, and it's obvious. And then you're talking, widespread, and you're talking about the magnitude and the location. So each event is a little different when it comes to probabilities and confidence levels based off the data that you have to work with. So this is one of those where the Weather Service and the Storm Prediction Center felt extremely low confidence, and they bought into a model that was too far east, and they started to have to bring it all back to the west at the day of the event. So that's even how other meteorologists see the same kind of data, and they will have to adjust their forecast as well. So on Sunday, I know the biases in the HER pushes that dry air way too far east. And the NAM says now it's going to be back to the west, and sure enough, the NAM continues to trend back more to the west. So that gave me confidence that the chance of it happening here is still there, even though it's low. So that's why we're still in that kind of a general trend or marginal trend for severe weather. It's a low confidence threshold. But if you did look at the other model I talked about, and that was I'll show you this again in case you guys missed it at the beginning of the show. The machine learning algorithms went with my forecast and brought that whole threat for tornadoes all the way to the I-35 corridor, right here in the brown and yellow area. More substantial, obviously significant east of there. You still have to break the cap for this to happen, but at least it included us in that. So machine algorithms think there's a better probability of hail, wind, and tornadoes here in central Oklahoma than the Storm Prediction Center and the Weather Service. So we shall see who wins on all that regard. Obviously, if we get a tornado, no one's going to win. Never want one of those, especially in a populated area. As we've seen over the last couple of storm events across the country, they never end well. Shelby, thank you for the stars, by the way. Appreciate you. Kaylin, you're welcome. I have heard what you've had to say. So, folks, if you're not reading the comments, she says, thanks for being real. Honestly, helping my kids get past storm anxiety since you stay calm. So I appreciate that. So that is the number one feedback that I get for what I do, which is awesome because I love helping everybody, especially the kids, man. Kids are our future, and there's so much out there that's damaging to kids these days. We don't need to throw weather into it. Ashley, thank you for the stars. Appreciate it. And Jared, you started the event asking the question about the cap in Dallas. I didn't look, but yeah, you look pretty capped down there. The morning sounding was pretty ridiculous, so I don't think you have to worry about that in your area. We're struggling to even break up here in Oklahoma. But yeah, Shelby, appreciate you there. And Isaac, thank you for the stars. Yeah, we do need some balloons. I talked to the Mesonet guys in Oklahoma. They're wanting to do drones at the Mesonet sites to go up and capture some data and come back down. But the problem with that is they go up pretty high, and the FAA is like, well, that's going to interfere with our operations for flight. So that's a no. So they're going back and forth trying to figure out a solution because we do need the data, and that is a great way to get it if we can make that happen. Bruce, thank you for the stars as well. You guys are awesome. We're probably pretty close to that $1 million or 1 million star achievement that Facebook started the broadcast with. So that's pretty awesome. You guys are great. Okay, let me check real quick on you guys on YouTube. Let's see. Kronos. Thank you very much for the tip on YouTube. Are we looking at rough overnight in Tulsa then? Yeah, probably about, it's hard to say the exact timing, so probably about 1 o'clock in the morning is when I would probably pay attention. Prior to that, if any supercells were to develop, isolated late afternoon and evening, there's been some model data that indicates they may come your direction. Let's see. So good question. And yeah, somebody said make sure you hit the like button. I talked about this last night in the broadcast. The algorithms, when Elon Musk released the Twitter algorithms, told us what we all pretty much know as content creators. If you do not like what you're watching or looking at, the algorithms think that nobody wants it, and it dumps down the memory hole. And so all of your audience that signed up to receive your content doesn't get it. So the more you guys interact, and the simple thing, the easiest thing is a like. It's got the most weight. Secondary weights are comments and shares, but the simple like button, believe it or not, is you have power in your thumb that allows content to be seen. Otherwise, it's gone. Bruce, again, thank you, and Jeremy, appreciate you sending the stars today here at lunchtime on Facebook. Let's see, anything else? Courtney on YouTube, you're welcome. Yeah, that Norman tornado was a pretty big deal. Thank goodness, knock on wood so far. It's been fairly quiet over Oklahoma this storm season. So we're only officially about 3 weeks in. It usually starts right around the middle of March. And we still have a lot of storm season to go. I can tell you the long-term pattern after this week is quiet for a while. So it'll be a little bit of a break across the country. Ridge builds in temporarily. And that usually shuts things down when it comes to storms. But we've still got the rest of April and May to go before we start to wind things down. So I'm sure we'll get some more opportunities coming up later. Let me think. I hope at some point we can get more chat interaction on Facebook. And then as Rumble gets more popular, more people get on Rumble. They activated chat as well here recently. So hopefully we'll be able to get that going on too. So if I can click on that, I can see the chat there. So there is a chat on Rumble now that is live. So that's good. So they're making progress on that platform. So you can have multiple ways to get my information, just so you guys know. If you get tired of one platform or another, just jump to another one. I got Facebook, Rumble, Twitter, and YouTube right now for live coverage on severe weather when it comes to tornadoes, or just my broadcasts like this one. All right, that's it for me. You guys, again, don't start any fires, and keep your eyes peeled to the sky this afternoon. Make sure you get my weather app, AT's Weather to Go. It's free, Apple, Google Play. It predicts the tornadoes before they even develop with proprietary algorithms. So it's got a little early version of AI built into it to let you know to seek shelter before one comes knocking on your door. So that's vital extra time to get your family and kids together and all that kind of stuff. Get your affairs in order. Otherwise, you'll probably see me later on today. If you don't, that's a good sign. When it's a tornado day, if you don't see me, that is a great sign. All right, you guys have a great rest of your afternoon. We'll talk again soon. Take care.